Welcome, everyone, to the 7th episode of Year 5 of the Bracket Report, brought to you by Delphi Bracketology. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni. I'm joined today by seniors Caleb Hosier and Walter Gleason, and joining us later will be junior Josh Reynolds. In this show and every show, we aim to keep you as informed as possible about who will be in March Madness. So please follow our work on our website, delphibracketology.com, and follow us on the X at Delphi Brackets. We're recording this here on March 4th. Some results tonight. As you see this on March 5th will make a difference, and we'll talk about that throughout the show. But we're going to start the show with the top 4 seeds and get some comments on some tough decisions that the committee will have, and also all bracketologists. On our 1 seed line, we have Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Tennessee moving up with their win over Alabama recently. And Walter, the question on the 1 seed line is Tennessee or Alabama. Does Alabama still have enough good work to remain on that, even though they lost to Alabama? Your thoughts?
I agree. Alabama does have a great body of work. I was looking at that, but I think the only thing that I have Tennessee in this argument, but the only thing having it is that win that they got from the first of the month.
Caleb, which way do you lean, Alabama or Tennessee?
I still like Bama over Tennessee, especially with how they won that game. It was a heave from maybe 5 feet behind the three-point line, and I'm pretty sure the Tennessee coach was trying to call a timeout before that too. So if he gets that timeout, maybe they don't end up winning that game, and things are a lot different if that doesn't happen.
10 wins in Quad 1, both teams do. Alabama has a better road record, a better non-conference schedule, more Quad 2 wins. I'm leaning back to Bama. We're going to find out, because upcoming games this week, Alabama plays Florida and then at number 1 Auburn. If Alabama wins those 2, they are definitely back up. If they split, they might be back up. Tennessee, meanwhile, is going to play at Ole Miss and home against South Carolina. So Alabama has a chance to maybe reclaim their seat on the 1 seed line. Our 2 seed lines right now, Alabama, Florida. I think those 2 are most likely to move up. Michigan State and Wisconsin. We kind of are debating Iowa State and Wisconsin. Caleb, your thoughts? Do the Badgers hold on to the last 2, even though they got beat on Sunday by Michigan State? Or do the Cyclones, who picked up a couple wins now that they're healthy, do they go back up to the number 2 seed line? Your thoughts?
I'm leaning more towards Iowa State just because looking at the end of Wisconsin's schedule, I think it's so close that those last 2 games are really important, and they're playing at Minnesota and home against Penn State, which I don't think winning those games bump you up at all.
Not going to move the needle. Walter, Iowa State, Wisconsin for the last 2 seed line.
I personally have Wisconsin. I mean, their KPI and WAB are both better than Iowa State. Wisconsin, I mean, they had a big win. I don't know how big it's getting since the team is falling a lot, but Purdue. But Caleb kind of talked about, I forget what episode it was, but they shot the lights out. But who's to say they're not going to shoot the lights out in March?
Yeah, Wisconsin doesn't have a whole lot of good games, as you mentioned. Iowa State does play BYU and at Kansas State. So a road win and a good win against a quality team in BYU can move that needle. We kind of moved Iowa State up from when we put the script together on Sunday. It's real close. Iowa State has a Quad 3 loss that might make a difference, but watch for those set of results this week to maybe make a decision there. Our 3 seed line is Iowa State, St. John's, Purdue, and Kentucky. And the topic for this, Walter, is 3 teams for 2 spots, basically. You have Purdue, Kentucky, and Texas Tech, 2 who could be on that 3 seed line. Where are you going? What 2 teams get it for you?
I like it how we have it. I mean, I was trying to look at it earlier, and I think I was just starting to overthink everything. And I think when you start to do that, sometimes you just have to go back to the original thing, which is what we had. So
I like that thinking, too, because you want to look at it and you want to be sure you're getting all the points, but sometimes you get more confused the more you look at it, and maybe that means just keep it the way it is. Caleb, Purdue, Kentucky, Texas Tech, what order do you have those teams in?
I'm with Braden on that. I think leaving it where it is right now and not overlooking it, like you said, I feel like that's a big thing, because then you just start mixing up and just going crazy.
Purdue, Kentucky, Texas Tech was the order at the reveal, and they've had somewhat similar results, even though Purdue has just the one win. Since then, they play tonight as well. Kentucky has LSU and at Missouri, Texas Tech, Colorado, and at Arizona State. Purdue is Rutgers at home and then at Illinois. So those results will make a difference on that seed line. And then the last of the four protected seeds, Texas Tech, Michigan, Texas A&M, and Arizona. And, fellas, the issue for our club right now is that last four spot. To the Arizona Wildcats, they were there, the last four in the reveal. They've lost a few games, but so has Missouri. We could go Missouri or Oregon probably for that last four seed line. Caleb, who gets that for you?
I don't know. I like Missouri over Arizona just because they're really similar, and Arizona's got the two quad 2 losses. That's the only thing I can really pick out, except for Missouri's strength of schedule isn't nearly as good. But that's the only thing I can find that would make me want to move Missouri above them.
So when you see where Missouri is eventually, the only thing that weighs them down right now is that strength of schedule, as you brought up. They're 2 games under 500, but no losses outside of 2 games under 500 in quad 1 and no bad losses. Walter, how do you see this line playing out?
I agree with the Missouri, but I would probably move them over A&M. I mean, they've lost 4 in a row, and they're going to probably be 5 after tonight. They play Auburn, so just guessing that they aren't going to get that win. And so, yeah, I would probably say Missouri.
Yeah, we haven't even talked. A&M is really struggling.
Yeah.
I could see them falling to a 5 very easily, and Missouri or Oregon moving up. So the number 4 seeds are all safe. The 1 through 4 seeds are all safe. The positioning matters because you get sent to a pod or a regional, and it's by order. The number 1 team gets to go to their closest, and it really makes a difference when you get down to 7, 8, 9, where they're seated by the committee, because then they get placed somewhat closer to home. If you're on the back end of the 4 seed line, you're going to go out west if you're a Midwestern Eastern school. Okay, that's it for segment 1. When we come back, we're going to look at the bubble, and we have a huge amount of information on the bubble, and it makes very little sense. But we'll share that with you coming up next on the Bracket Report.
Hey there, my name is Jake Query.
And I'm Derek Schultz.
And we are part of, actually, the entirety of, at least from an on-air standpoint, Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network. It's appropriately named. It's charitably award-winning. And Derek, now we venture into season number 5. Hard to believe.
5 of them. 5 of them. Can you believe it? 2 best buds talking Colts,
Hardly
Pacers, Indiana sports, every Tuesday night, 7:30, ISC Sports Network, and on socials as well.
It is made possible, of course, by the people who watch and listen every single week. We are most appreciative. We look forward to season number 5.
Leaps a man, still on his feet. Stevens lunges.
Are you kidding me?
Champions of Marion County.
Unbelievable!
Touchdown.
Living up to that last day. Wabash has the lead for the first time today. Said that was going to be a highlight reel. Oh, baby.
Yeah, you can celebrate after that.
Welcome back to the Bracket Report. I'm Brian Tonsoni, joined by Caleb Hosier, and now we welcome Josh Reynolds to the set, and let's talk the bubble. We have 11 teams in contention, plus VCU if needed, and we'll talk about that for 8 spots. And obviously teams outside of that can win a few games and go on a run and maybe get our attention, and maybe some teams that are above these teams can struggle here down the stretch and fall into this, but we think it's 11 teams. So we're going to break down the strengths and weaknesses of every team. I'm going to start off with the Georgia Bulldogs, who have won 2 really big games recently, got another road win, and they look the best right now for us in this bubble situation. These are all stats as of Sunday, so Sunday's games and Monday's games may have moved this a little bit, but a net of 33. No losses outside of quad one, and great metrics, average about 33, 36, and they have 5 wins against the field and 3 top 20 wins. The only thing holding them back is road record 2-7, and a non-conference schedule is not very good. Caleb, your thoughts on Georgia on the bubble?
I like them being on the bubble, but I feel like we got to look at the conference tournament for them, and I know that we're not supposed to really rely on the conference tournament that much when seeding the teams, but they're in the SEC, and if they can maybe get like the semi-final round or possibly championship, if they pull off something like NC State did last year, I think that getting those wins and those will pile up and keep them in, but it could also hurt them.
Josh, your thoughts on Georgia?
I think if Georgia wins out, even if they lose the first or second round of the SEC tournament, they will be in the tournament.
So 2 regular season wins, and they're in very well, could be. Let's go, Josh. You take West Virginia, their pros and cons.
West Virginia, their pros, they have a WAB of 39 and a resume average also 39. They have 6 wins versus the field, which is huge for them. They have 5 quad 1A wins, which is also very good for a bubble team, and 1 neutral court and 2 away. 4 top 20 wins. The cons, though, their net is 48, which is really low compared to most of the rest of the bubble, and their road record is 3-7, which is not good.
Caleb, your thoughts on West Virginia?
I kind of like them being in the Big 12, which they got the 2 quad 2 losses, which isn't bad compared to some of the teams around them. Looking at Ohio State, who's got 4 quad 2 losses, and playing 15 quad 1 games, I feel like really helps them. Just that scheduling is something I really like to look at compared to the other teams. So
I think Georgia and West Virginia are 2 of the safest teams in this bubble situation. Next, Caleb, take Baylor. We're starting to get into the questionable resumes where you honestly could put each one of these teams out if you wanted to, and Baylor is one of those teams.
Baylor's got a 32 net and 31 average predictive metrics with a 38 on wins against the bubble and 41 resume metrics. And they also got 5 wins versus the field, which is about where most other teams are, with about 5 to 6 wins against the field. And their strength of schedule is pretty good. They got a strength of schedule of 5 in the country, which is insane compared to most of the other teams, with West Virginia being one of the best with 12. And cons for Baylor is they've got a lot of losses that have been starting to pile up on them lately. 2-9 road record, which, looking at that really struggles. If they get into the tournament and they are far away from where they usually are, they might not be able to pick up some wins. And they are 11-12 in quads 1 through 3, so they're playing games that could help them, but they're not winning them.
At 16-12, they can't afford too many losses, or the number of losses will knock them out. I'm going to move on to Oklahoma, which a lot of people have out. We still have them in. We have them win on basically 6 wins against the field and 5-0 neutral, which is where the NCAA tournament. The question is, they're 4-12 in conference, and that's getting a lot of play on social media, but conference record is not a criteria. But what is a criteria is when you've won 4 out of your last 14 games since the turn of the calendar year. There was a team a couple years ago that had really good wins in November and December, Xavier, and they were the 5th team out by that time, and we thought they had a resume worthy. I'm not sure that there's much difference between that Xavier team and Oklahoma. Bad predictive metrics, 1-7 on the road, a quad 3 loss, under 500 in quads 1, 2, and 3. We have them near the very bottom of the bubble. They could very easily be out. Josh, go ahead and take my Indiana Hoosiers.
I think they're a very good team. I think they have a very good chance of making the tournament. They have a WAB of 43 and a resume average of 41, which are both very strong. They have no losses outside of the quad 1, which is huge. And they have 2 quad 1A road wins and 2 top 20 net wins against Michigan State and Purdue. But their cons is that their net is 55, which is not good at all. They only have 3 wins against the field, which is lower of the last 8 teams that we're talking about. And their strength of schedule overall is the 34th lowest of the last 8.
I'm always obviously biased towards the Hoosiers and sometimes against. They've won 2 games, and the 2 games prop them up right now, the metrics in the 2 games. But when you look deeper, the schedule didn't do them any favor, and some of the results on the schedule, their resume looks good, but the committee could downgrade them. So I'm cautioning Hoosier fans not to get too excited yet about being out of Dayton or anything like that. Because, one, they got to win against Oregon on Tuesday night, and by the time you're watching this, you'll know that. But, yeah, the Hoosiers are a little bit safer, but still have work to do. Caleb, Josh, you want Ohio State?
I don't care.
Or you want Caleb to take
I don't
Ohio
care.
State?
Give it to him.
Josh, take Ohio State. Your Buckeyes, they're back in.
They have a net of 36, which is, I think, the highest out of any bubble team. I'm not sure about that, though. And they have predictive metrics They have an average metric of 35.5, which is also very strong. They have 3 quad 1A wins, 1 neutral and 1 away. The other one's home, obviously. 3 top 20 net wins, which is huge for them, and I think that's the only reason they're still in, with them having a lot of losses, which is one of their cons. The other one is that their WAB is 49, which is awful, and their average resume metrics is also 49.
By the time you're watching this, you'll know if they beat Nebraska or not on Tuesday night. If they beat Nebraska, boy, they move up a slot or 2. If they lose to Nebraska, they are in really big trouble. I think Ohio State might have to beat Nebraska and go into Bloomington and beat Bloomington or win in Bloomington in order to have enough wins versus losses. We like to say 4 games above 500. I think the Big Ten tournament's going to mean a lot for Ohio State, as are these last 2 games. Caleb, take Nebraska.
Not a big fan of Nebraska, but the pros that they have right now are they have 2 quad 1 wins that are on the road, and they are 7-7 on their neutral record, which road and neutral, which that's pretty good, I feel like, compared to most teams. Then they have 6 wins against the field, which, unlike IU, that really helps them right now. And cons are they have a 57 net, which is a lot higher than team right by them, Ohio State, from the same conference too. And their predictive metrics are 56.5, which is pretty high compared to Ohio State, which I don't know, what do they have? 35.5. So that's a lot worse than what Ohio State has. And their WAB is at a 52 and resume metrics at 49, which not looking too good for them right there. And 11-12 in quads 1 through 3. And also looking at their schedule, they've lost 3 in a row, and they play at Ohio State and Iowa, which aren't the most flattering games.
A loss Tuesday night will move them out of our bracket, and I think it'll be hard for them to get back in unless they win out and maybe win a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament. But they're our second to last team out. Our last team out is Arkansas. And they have the metrics are good. They have 6 wins against the field. The tough thing for us right now is the 3 bottom teams have more wins against the fields than Baylor and Oklahoma or Indiana. And that's just one metric or one criteria. You got to look at the whole body of work. But, man, it's really hard to knock those teams out that have 4 quad 1 wins, 5 quad 1 wins, and have won against quality competition. We're holding on to those teams here in this last week. Arkansas is under 500 in quads 1 and 2 and under 500 in quads 1, 2, and 3. There's nothing good about Arkansas's resume. There's nothing good about Nebraska's resume. There's nothing good about Oklahoma's resume. And Indiana's resume is somewhat weak, and so is Ohio State and Baylor. I mean, the bubble is a struggle. Those are the teams that we have in. Fellas, we only got a couple minutes, so we're going to run through these real quick. Josh, if you have North Carolina, Xavier, and Boise, those are the 3 teams that are likely to pop in. If we don't like any of those teams, you got to put a team in. We talk a lot on social media. Everyone says that team can't be in. That team's ridiculous, not in. Then I say, please respond with who you are putting in, because there's even more ridiculousness outside the bubble. Take Xavier. Why should they be in or why should they be out? Real quick.
Xavier should be in because they're 12-10 and the quads 1, 2, and 3. They have 3 wins versus the field and no bad losses, and their resume average is 39.5, which is very strong.
They only have 1 win in quad 1, which is going to hold them down. Caleb, argue for North Carolina if you even can.
lately I've talked so much crap about North Carolina, especially on the little podcast that we did last Thursday. But I have nothing good to say about them except for March 8th when they play Duke. I think that is
winning in.
I don't like to say that one game gets them in, but
I agree.
I think it does.
Their metrics are good. Their metrics put them in. They're 12-11 in quads 1, 2, and 3, which we just said Oklahoma, Arkansas, those teams are below 500, but they only have one win in quad 1. The team to watch is Boise State. Boise State has metrics that put them in, predictive metrics, net and predictive. Their WOB and their resume metrics put them out, but they have 2 top 20 net wins, 4 wins against the field, which is more than Indiana, 8-7 on the road and neutral, and 11-8 in quads 1, 2, and 3. If it gets down to the committee saying we're going to look at one metric, I think Boise might have a handle on getting in. Those are the 3 teams we're really watching. As we said, there are other teams that are still under consideration, but really have to have a lot of luck for them and their opponents to lose. VCU is the last team we're going to talk about before we end this segment. Do they get an automatic bid if they lose in the A10? They have a net of 29, average predictive measure of 28, a WOB just outside of acceptance at 50, a resume metric of 45. So you could say their metrics put them in 7-4 in quads 1 and 2, but they have no wins against the field, and they have a quad 4 loss, and their schedule's not as strong. So when you see those last teams in or out and Dick Vitale going crazy about who was left out, it is a very, very tight bubble this year, as we have 11 teams that are really, really close. So that'll do it for our bubble talk in segment 2. When we come back, we'll introduce the conference tournaments that got started here this week. That's all coming up next on the Bracket Report.
Hey there, my name is Jake Query.
And I'm Derek Schultz.
And we are part of, actually the entirety of, at least from an on-air standpoint, Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network. It's appropriately named. It's charitably award-winning. And Derek, now we venture into season number 5. Hard to believe.
5 of them. 5 of them. Can you believe it? 2 best buds talking Colts, Pacers, Indiana sports, every Tuesday night, 7:30, ISC Sports Network, and on socials as well.
It is made possible, of course, by the people who watch and listen every single week. We are most appreciative. We look forward to season number 5.
Leaps a man, still on his feet. Stevens lunges.
Are you kidding me? Champions of Marion County. Unbelievable.
Touchdown.
Living up to that last name. Wabash has the lead for the first time today. Said that was going to be a highlight reel. Oh, baby.
Yeah, you can celebrate after that.
Welcome back to the Bracket Report. I'm Brian Tonsoni. Walter Gleason's back with us now. Josh Reynolds. And the conference tournament started this week, and the winners of those conference tournaments get automatic bids into the tournament. There are 31 tournaments. We're going to share with you our thoughts on 15 of them, as some of them will wrap up this week. Most of them will wrap up next week and get teams in the dance. So, Josh, start us off, please.
The Ohio Valley Conference, regular season, Southeast Missouri won 10 of the last 11. Upsets, we could see SIUE or Little Rock. Our predicted winner is Southeast Missouri.
I got the Big South. Regular season champs were High Point. They've won 11 in a row now. We could see some upsets with Winthrop and UNC Asheville. We are predicting winner is High Point.
So now we're on to the Patriot League, and there was a tie in the regular season between Bucknell and American. So those 2 teams are the favorite. The upset team, let's go with Army. I think, why not? They've played well at times, just slightly above 500. We predict the winner to be American and likely a 16 seed.
Next up, we have the Atlantic Sun. Regular season was a tie between Lipscomb and Northern Alabama. Upsets, we can see FGCU, Jacksonville, and Eastern Kentucky. We have Lipscomb winning it, but this conference is very tight.
I got the Summit. Regular season was Omaha. Some upsets we could see is South Dakota and North Dakota State. We're predicting South Dakota State with the win of this conference.
Moving on to the Sun Belt, which has a odd bracket because they play 2 games at a time and advance 2 teams based on the regular season. So there's a 4-way regular season tie. 2 teams went to the semifinals and 2 went to the quarterfinals. So based on the tiebreaker, someone has to win 1 more game to get into the tournament. The semifinal teams are South Alabama and James Madison, so they get the furthest amount of byes. They're seeded 1 and 2. Arkansas State, probably the favorite, got a 3 seed, and Troy, we're predicting James Madison.
Next up, we have the Horizon regular season. Robert Morris won. Upsets, we can see Milwaukee, Cleveland State, and Purdue Fort Wayne. We predict that Cleveland State will win.
I got the Coastal Athletic Conference. Regular season win was Townsend. Some upsets we could see was North Carolina, Wilmington, or Charleston. We're predicting Charleston's going to win this one.
Moving on to the Southern Conference, the regular season champ was Chattanooga, who is on an 11-game winning streak right now. You could see North Carolina, Greensboro, and Samford possible upsets. We're going to pick an upset. I think Samford, who beat Chattanooga earlier in the season, we're going to predict them with the upset and them to go dancing.
Next up, we have the Southland regular season McNeese. They won it. They went 18-1 in conference play. Upsets, we can see Nichols and Lamar winning. We have McNeese winning it.
I got the Northeast Conference. Regular season was Central Connecticut. Some upsets we could see is Long Island. We think that Central Connecticut is going to win this one.
Central Connecticut's been dominant all season, and they did the same thing last year and got upset. So we'll see if they go dancing. Arch Madness in St. Louis for the Missouri Valley. One of the best conference tournaments to watch. They will end up on CBS Sunday at 2:30, their championship. You have Drake, who dominated the season, regular season. They had 3 close wins, including 2 in overtime, and 1 against the worst team in the conference to end the season. So you wonder if they are struggling a little bit down the stretch. Upsets could be the 2 and 3 seeds, Bradley and Northern Iowa. Those 2 teams just recently played, with Bradley winning. I'm going to predict that Bradley wins, and then we're going to have a discussion on whether Drake should get an at-large with the great record that they've had. And we're back to the Indiana State stuff of last year when they lost in the championship game and didn't get in. I'm afraid we're going to have to make that decision once again.
Next up, we have the American East. Regular season, Bryant won it. Upsets, we can only see Vermont. And winner, we do have Bryant winning it.
I got the Big Sky Conference. Regular season tie between North Colorado and Montana. Don't really see any upsets with this one, and I think Montana is going to win this one.
And we end the first round of conference championships with the West Coast Conference. St. Mary's with a really dominant performance out there. They're a 4 seed for us. They won the regular season. They beat Gonzaga twice. We'll see if they can beat Gonzaga a 3rd time, as St. Mary's and Gonzaga get byes all the way into the semifinals of that tournament. The upset obviously would be Gonzaga. It's very hard for me to say that Gonzaga is an upset candidate with their history, but losing twice to St. Mary's, I think there's a clear favorite. San Francisco is the team to watch. They've been very good. Just recently got beat pretty bad by Gonzaga, but that would be the other team that could. We're going to predict St. Mary's to win the conference tournament and stay on the 4 or the 5 seed line for us. So this conference tournament week, it's great. Find them on your local TV. As we mentioned in segment 1, there are some great games that will determine seeds 1, 2, and 3. There are great games on the bubble. As we mentioned, Nebraska, Ohio State, Indiana here locally will have some games on Tuesday night that will make us change the bracket on Wednesday morning. Tune in to all of your local stations and find a lot of great basketball. Conference tournament time is one of the best times of the year. But that's going to do it for us here on our 7th episode of the Bracket Report. We'd like to give thanks to Greg Rakestraw and ISC Sports Network for hosting our show. Again, DelphiBracketology.com. We put out a new bracket on Tuesday. Check that out. We'll try to update that as regular as possible. And send us your questions at Delphi Brackets on the X. I'm Brian Tonsoni. For Caleb Hosier, Josh Reynolds, and Walter Gleason, we thank you for watching.